Human beings have always depended on a variety of living resources for their survival. Biodiversity is vital for the production of food and to conserve the ecological foundation needed to sustain people's livelihoods. Biodiversity is vital for adapting crops and animals to a range of environmental conditions. And biodiversity contributes to important functions like nutrient cycling, pest and disease regulation, pollination, maintenance of water quality, soil health and erosion control. For hundreds of thousands of years, human beings simply gathered what the earth offered them. What they picked was for their consumption alone. The rest was left untouched. Like in this arid part of Africa, between the dunes and ponds on the eastern rim of Lake Chad. Generations ago, the women of the region discovered that the soft mush growing like green velvet on the edges of the ponds was edible and had certain characteristics. It gave strength and resistance, and, spread over the skin, it cured diseases and helped heal wounds. They called it dihe, or blue algae, and modern science only now has the means to explain its seemingly miraculous qualities. Exceptionally rich in proteins, vitamins and iron, it has antiseptic and antibiotic properties and the power to regenerate cells. Artificially produced under the name of spirulina, in just a few years it has experienced a fantastic economic boom, expanding its market value 10 times over. But in the delicate environment of Lake Chad, dihe is still a natural product. Women learn from their mothers and grandmothers how to make the most of it without spoiling the environment, without endangering the growth of blue algae for future generations. A project has now been designed to develop its production in Chad for a wider national and regional market. But investments and new technologies risk leaving the women and their traditional knowledge out of this developing process, making their product less competitive even on the local market. What comes from people's knowledge must remain with the people for the benefit of the generations to come. For a self-sustaining development, new technologies must integrate and not overshadow traditional knowledge. Simply gathering food to survive made life uncertain, too dependent on circumstances. So humans started controlling their own plant and animal resources, selecting, planting and improving the quality and quantity of what they used to collect. This was the moment when men and women became farmers, and free land, farms. Different soils, different altitudes, latitudes, different climatic conditions created a great diversity of crop species and varieties. And farmers, generation after generation, learned how to select and improve those products to suit their needs and tastes. for as long as anyone can remember, farmers have developed thousands of different kinds of potatoes. Each farmer selected his own varieties to satisfy his taste, but also to protect his harvest against the risk of all sorts of natural disasters. From experience, farmers learned to plant these varieties together in the same field to be sure to have at least something to harvest and bring home. And even now they still follow this practice.
When I was a child, I grew up with my grandfather. He used to plant many different types of potatoes, especially a kind called pirua. Now I have my own family, and I want to continue planting just like my grandfather used to do.
In Ireland, during the 1840s, the potato famine caused by a plant disease killed more than 1 million poor people solely dependent on the potato crop. The production was eventually saved by a variety of potato found in Peru, resistant to the disease. Working with the Instituto Internacional de la Papa of Lima, Peruvian farmers are creating a genetic bank that will benefit fellow farmers all around the world. In Ethiopia, persistent droughts are often responsible for the loss of harvests. And no harvest means no seeds to plant in the next sowing season. It's generally believed that improved seeds coming from countries rich in technology are the best and only way to increase yields. But in countries of great diversity like Ethiopia, experience has shown that often it's more effective to improve resilience of local seed systems rather than importing inputs and techniques not adapted to the local environment. Information on how farmers acquire seeds and what they look for in varieties is essential for improving plant breeding, distribution, and seed policies and programs. Information becomes even more essential during emergency situations to prepare relief distribution. Relief agencies are now taking better account of the diversity farmers need or want. Ibsa Abraham is a farmer living in Walenso, Hararge province. This maize is the only crop left for the year, as drought destroyed his wheat and sorghum. Yet the new rain is coming, and with the rain a new sowing season. An FAO team and an expert from the Hararge Catholic Secretariat are carrying out a survey to understand what variety of seeds farmers need to sow in their fields. Almost all farmers here have their land scattered in small plots around the mountains. Each plot has a different soil composition and is situated at a different altitude, requiring a different selection of seeds. Men choose their crops considering the crop they produce and the stalks as fodder or to build their houses. Women take into account the crop as food for the family or as a source of revenue in the market. Once the survey is completed, the members of the team contact local traders, asking them to provide the requested varieties. Then they test the quality, discuss the price, buy the seeds, and organize the distribution. So farmers will have the seeds they've always used, adapted to their environment, and traders will not lose their markets to a flood of imported emergency relief seeds. The ecological well-being and the economic balance of the community are respected.
After I harvest, first I'll pay back the seeds to the seed bank, then I'll help my family and maybe buy a cow.
Okay.
One of the conditions for the assistance is that farmers will commit themselves to pay a part of their harvest back to the local commune to create a seed bank. It's a way of safeguarding native crops and improving crops by selecting the best seeds. But often, in a world moving too fast, local traditional varieties just cannot compete with the modern improved varieties or a modified ecosystem for which they're not adapted. This is the case of Cambodia and deep-water rice production. For centuries, the rhythm of life in Cambodia has depended on the rise and fall of the Tonle Sap Lake. The waters of the Mekong River, fed and swollen in the wet season by rain and melting glaciers, cannot all flow to the sea. When they meet the Tonle Sap River, they cause the river to reverse direction and fill up the Tonle Sap Lake, expanding its surface for miles. Deep-water rice follows the movements of the tide, growing up to 5 meters high. But wild deforestation and dams are making the rise and fall of the water too rapid. The result? The deep-water rice drowns under mounting water. 20,000 living species in the world are disappearing every year due to the change of habitat caused by human activities. Deep-water rice is one of them. Now, as deep-water rice is disappearing, Cambodians can draw their living only from the receding rice they plant at the beginning of the dry season, and by increasing the pressure on plant and animal resources of the lake. Traditionally, after the harvest, farmers leave their villages to follow the receding waters, becoming fisher folk. In recent years, due to population increases, the pressure on the resources of the lake and the surrounding plains has increased. More rice and more fish are needed to feed people, so more forest is cleared and more fish caught, even using illegal fishing gear and techniques. Many varieties of fish are at risk. Fisherfolk and farmers from the villages say commercial fishing lots are responsible for this threatening situation. Still, they too, in order to make a living, use the same methods and cut down the flooded forest. They feel they have no other way. A solution could be to redistribute good commercial fishing lots to local community fisheries. With training and help, fisherfolk would be able to manage the ecosystem in a sustainable way, protecting the forest, controlling the fishing gear, and reducing catches. A solution could be to decrease the pressure on the lake by creating alternative sources of income. If this fails, Cambodia's ecosystem will soon get to a point of no return. If two different ecosystems are interconnected, the development of one can mean the impoverishment of the other. Around Lake Chad, people living in the dry area were at one time interacting with those living in the wet areas. Cattle could graze in the cultivated fields after harvest, leaving dung as fertilizer. But intensive agriculture and investments are now keeping cattle and nomads away from the irrigated areas. They have to look for different pastures. It's no easy task. Pearl people have traditionally lived in inland areas, but now that climate has become increasingly arid, they've been forced to move onto the islands with their cattle and minimal supplies, passing from one to the other in a constant move in search of pastures. Their economy, their culture, and the whole of their life is at risk. Their cattle have no resistance to the wet habitat. The endless moving in a new environment reduces the chances of access to medical and veterinarian care, schooling facilities and markets. The way out could be combining tradition and new technologies, traveling teachers, veterinarians and doctors, radio programs, renewable sources of energy, but also new concepts like microcredit and social insurance. All this allows people to continue living in their traditional nomadic way, the only way of living upon a delicate ecosystem with unreliable rainfall. Also in Cambodia, the combination of training with the introduction of new practices and the rediscovery of old ones offers hope for a sustainable future. Here, a group of integrated pest management trainers are introducing farmers to the principles of soil ecosystem functioning, showing them how worms move to the most favorable habitat. Understanding the role of living organisms in maintaining soil fertility and plant health helps to improve production. Pesticides are a poison that kill more than just pests. They kill all manner of beneficial predators, decreasing the resilience of the overall system and endangering human health. Human beings are part of the ecosystem, part of biological diversity. With their different backgrounds and knowledge and different behaviors, they're like different elements contributing to the life of the whole community. If one of these elements is lost, the whole community will suffer. Here in Cambodia, HIV/AIDS is a terrible calamity rampaging through villages and cities. Being infected is a personal tragedy, but also a very serious issue for the whole community. A reduction of labor force, no more care for the young members of the family, an interruption in the passage of knowledge from one generation to the other.
When I was a soldier, I made this tattoo in the jungle because I believed someone who told me they could protect me against the enemy. I don't feel ashamed anymore. I think I have to tell my story to the people of the village. I can blame only myself for what I did and what I have. So I'm not afraid to talk to make other people learn from my experience.
Also, isolating infected people from the community is a threat to the unity of the community itself. Farmer life schools help communities to understand and deal with issues such as HIV/AIDS infection, which strike at the heart of their daily lives.
In farmer life school, when the communities have a chance to bring these issues to discuss together, and when they see the family situation directly, they observe it, and they record everything, they ask any information they need, so they be able to learn from that, and they be prepared for how better to prevent this disease to their family or to the whole community. So if we talk about ecosystem, the natural ecosystem, there is the link between crops, between insects, animals, and weather, water, seed, variety, biodiversity, insect, pests, and natural enemy, but also with human beings. So human being is also a part of natural ecosystem. So if something happens to the human, they also make the natural ecosystem become unbalanced.
FAO's goal is to promote sustainable agricultural development, improve nutrition and food security, and the access of all people to the food they need for an active and healthy life. Biological diversity provides many services to agriculture, but agriculture too can be a service to biological diversity. In Peru, as in Chad, Ethiopia, Cambodia, and elsewhere, farmers, through both tradition and direct practice, have improved their knowledge of how to deal with biological diversity and how to develop biodiversity as an insurance for their difficult and precarious lives.